Shoto sat crouched in the corner of Class 1A. Darkness surrounded him. Everyone was told to stay silent and out of sight. The League of Villains had attacked the school, and now several of them were inside the building. Shoto listened intently for any sign of anyone in the hallway when he heard faint giggling. At first, he thought it might be Toga, but then he heard his name. Shoto! His blood turned icy when he realized that it was your voice, and a deep shudder raced its way up his spine. You were only a little ways down the hallway, and he could hear the distant clicking of your footsteps that filled every sense of his body with dread. You called out his name again, your voice echoing throughout the empty hall. Shoto! Come out wherever you are, you said in a sing-songy voice. Shoto stared at the doorknob, praying that you didn't try to open the door. You know, hide and seek, that's my favorite game. But it's no fun if I can't find any of you guys, you said in a pouty tone. There was silence for a moment, then the sound of a blunt object striking the door to the classroom. Once, twice, 3 times. Then it stopped. Everything was still. When suddenly, the glass from the window shattered and several students yelped in surprise. Crap, Shoto thought, staring at the window. He could see your silhouette peering just past the glass. I know you're in here, Shoto. You can't hide from me, you said again in a sing-songy voice. Shoto pressed his back up against the wall, trying to remain as flat as possible. Wake up, you said in a hushed tone. Shoto stared at you, confused. Wake up, you said again. Shoto bolted upright in bed, panting, covered in a cold sweat. He searched around the room wildly for a moment, then realized this wasn't the 1A classroom. It was his bedroom. Hey, are you okay? He said with a yawn. He turned to look at you. Your sleepy eyes just stared at him with confusion. I'm fine. It was just a bad dream, Shoto reassured you. What time is it? He said, rubbing his eyes. You turned over to look at the clock. It's 8:30, he said, pulling the covers over your head, trying to go back to sleep. Shoto chuckled and pulled back the covers and got out of bed and started heading to the bathroom. Can I go with you this time? You asked before he reaches the door. Shoto sighed and turned to face you. Not after what happened last time. You groaned in frustration and rolled your eyes. Ugh, I'll be careful this time, I promise. I can... No, Shoto interrupts you. The last time you went on patrol with me, you got seriously hurt, and I am not letting that happen again, he says seriously. You've got to be kidding me. I was fine, you say, getting out of bed and taking a couple steps closer to him. Sure, yeah, if you count almost bleeding out from 2 gunshot wounds as fine. Shoto scoffed. You rolled your eyes and walked out of the room in a huff. You and Shoto had been dating for around 2 years, and, well, your relationship did have its ups and downs, as any relationship does, but other than that, you were really happy together. You had joined his agency as a secretary, but you hated the job. You hated all of the stupid people that came in for meetings with him, and just the people that came to see him. But it was the best way to cover yourself. You secretly hated the hero system. It was so corrupt, and not to mention that the entirety of Japan, and probably the world, put their trust in entitled people who wouldn't give the lesser people of the population a chance. That was the reason why you joined the LOV in secret. It enraged you so much to see all of the lesser people with lesser quirks or without a quirk at all, not being given even the slightest of chances to prove that they could be a hero on the battlefield with a quirk or with a support group. And it made you want to scream every time you heard another pro hero's name. Well, except for Shoto's. He was the only exception. But your relationship had one thing that you had neglected purposefully to address. Your quirk. Well, quirks. You had lied to him about one. You had two, which was extremely rare, and you were probably one of the only people in the world that had two. But you were told as a child to keep both of them a secret, which was very difficult for you, because you wanted to see what kind of potential you had as a hero with those quirks. But as you got older, that hope was shattered. Many people didn't want you as a hero or thought your quirk was better suited to be a villain. So, you followed them. You listened to their advice. And it was honestly the best decision you had ever made. The first quirk that you had used more often than not in your normal day-to-day life was called Desire Seeker. You could peer into somebody's mind and see what their deepest desires were. It was honestly pretty interesting to use, but the main purpose that you used it for was either for interrogation or to get information out of people. And your second quirk was the one that you had kept hidden for years. It was called Illusion Dust. This quirk allowed you to create physical illusions out of sand or dust. The illusions were tangible and extremely realistic, and if you wanted them to be, you could have people physically interact with them, and you could even make clones of yourself. It was pretty useful. As a kid, you used it for pranks a lot, and it made you laugh, even as a villain, to see people's reactions when the things that they loved or cared about turned to dust. It was relieving almost. You made your way to the kitchen to make breakfast, all the while going over the plan in your head. You needed to get him alone, powerless, vulnerable, and with a very difficult choice to make. You were so wrapped up in your thoughts that you didn't even notice him creeping up behind you. "Boo!" he shouted, and you jumped back in surprise. "Shoto Todoroki, don't you dare do that again," you gasped angrily. "You almost gave me a heart attack." Shoto laughed and wrapped his arms around your waist, pulling you in close. "I love you," he mumbled into your shoulder. You rolled your eyes and leaned your head onto his. "Don't you have to be somewhere?" you asked sarcastically. Shoto just ignores you and continues to nuzzle your shoulder with his head. You shrug your shoulders to get him off of you, and he raises it grumpily. "Fine, I'll go," he says, letting go of you. You hand him a bagel, which he gladly accepts and starts to head toward the door. "Love you," you say as he leaves. With the second he shut the door, you let out a long sigh. You loved him, but he was a pain sometimes. You finished preparing and eating your breakfast, then went around and did the everyday tasks around the apartment before getting dressed and heading out to work. "Back to the stupid job that I have," you thought to yourself as you got into the car and pulled out of the driveway. At least you were getting off early today, which was nice. After several long, anxiety-filled hours, you finally got off work and raced to your hideout as fast as you could. You have everything set up, and you just needed Shoto. You changed into your hero attire and just camped out at the hideout for a while, biding your time, until finally you got a call. Shoto was frantic on the other end of the line, trying to figure out where you were. "Where are you? Are you okay?" he asked in a panic. I don't know. Somebody held me at gunpoint in my car and then just told me to drive," you say, trying to sound as scared as possible. "Send me your location," Shoto said earnestly. You complied and sent him your location, then hung up abruptly. You had everything ready. Only time would tell if he fell for what you had in store for him. Shoto parked the car, jumped out, and raced into the building. The loud echo of his footsteps alerted you to his presence. You quickly grabbed a heavy baseball bat that was sitting by a chair and raced to the door, hiding in the shadows of the room. Shoto slowly opened the door and cautiously made his way inside. Once he was in the perfect range, you raised the bat over your head and brought it down hard on the back of his. He crumpled to the ground in a heap, and you let out a sigh of relief, knowing that the hardest part was over. Shoto awoke in a barely lit room, strapped down to a chair, thick leather restraints digging into his wrists, and a rhythmic, painful throbbing in the back of his head. Where was he? What was he doing here? He struggled against the restraints for a moment, and then activated his left side, trying to burn his way through at least one of them. I wouldn't do that if I were you, a voice says from the other side of the room. Click. A light switch is flicked, and 2 large spotlights come on, momentarily blinding him. Shoto squints, trying to get his eyes used to the lights, when he saw you. Well, a clone of you anyways. But he didn't know that, did he? The clone was tied to a chair, covered in bleeding cuts and bruises. His eyes searched around the room for the owner of the voice, when out of the shadows of the room, you stepped into the light. The yellow fluorescence giving your skin a light yellowish tint. What did you do to them? Shoto demanded. You raised your hands defensively. I haven't touched them, I swear. You say this honestly, and it was true. You had made the clone look as if it had been badly beaten. Meanwhile, you didn't have a scratch. You smiled under a black face mask, trying to hide your excitement. I do have a little proposition for you, Shoto Todoroki, you say devilishly, a grin spreading its way across your face. You walk away from your clone and over to the next spotlight. Press a button on a panel, and the floor opens to reveal another platform, where Momo Yaoyorozu is sat, tied to a chair. Shoto's eyes fly from you to your clone to Momo. I want you to choose, Shoto Todoroki. Choose between a girl from high school who you haven't seen in years, or your lover, you say, mischievously. You watch as Shoto's gaze flew from your clone to Momo several times, until, after a moment, he hung his head in what seemed like shame. I'm sorry, Momo, he whimpered dejectedly. Momo began to beg and plead for her life, but it was too late. The decision had been made. With a snap of your fingers, Momo Yaoyorozu turned to dust. You watched as her dust floated away, content with the fact that your plan was going perfectly. You walked up to Shoto and undid his restraints, and watched as he raced to your clone and undid theirs. You took this opportunity to slink back into the shadows and leave the room undetected. You activated your quirk and took control of your clone. You made it run away from Shoto, out of the room, down the hall, and up to the rooftop. You loved Shoto, but you needed him on your side. And if this was the only way to get that, then so be it. Hey guys, so sorry I haven't been posting as of late. If y'all don't know, I got a job and I'm very, very busy with that job. I work at least 30 hours a week. But anyways, that's beside the point. I hope you guys are doing okay, and if you like this video, please like and subscribe for more. There will be a part 2. Don't worry about that. I promise there will be. But yeah. Alrighty, I love you guys so much. Please have a good day, and if you're having a bad day, hopefully this makes it better. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye!